Okay, thank you, Ms. Renata.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, Mr. Williamson.
Good morning.
Mr. Williamson, you're here this afternoon, or this morning rather, before the Pardon Board requesting a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in East Baton Rouge Parish, November of 1998, for conviction, oral sexual battery, 6 counts, and sexual battery, 6 counts. You received a 50-year sentence altogether. You have a parole eligibility date, which is October 2034, but your good time date, mandatory release date, precedes that because it is in March of 2034. Mr. Williamson, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, your case has been assigned to Mr. Wise. Would you answer his questions? Mr. Wise? Pardon Board, you're on mute. Mr. Wise, we can't hear you. There you go.
Got me on mute. But anyway,
Yep.
at this time, I went over your case a few days, and I've just been looking at it over and over and over. And I go and I look at this, and out of the cases I've seen in a long time, this is a very terrible crime that was committed here. I see you have 3 children from your first wife, 1 child from your second wife, 2 children from your third wife. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You know, as I look back on and I read all the reports and everything of some of the things that happened here, I mean, where would you be if this was happening to your children?
I would really be upset.
I mean, and as I look on here, I see there's a lot of opposition to release, and also the victims, some of the victims' family. Have you taken all 4 courses of the sex offender program?
Yes, sir. I've got the certificates in here. I was a facilitator for the sex offenders program for over 10 years at Angola before I came here.
That's great. But before that, you were charged with forgery of a credit card, grand larceny, simple battery, issuing worthless checks, misdemeanor theft, and possession of dangerous drugs and marijuana, issuing worthless checks, criminal mischief. I mean, your record kind of speaks for itself. Way over 20 different arrests. And then this arrest here was a terrible arrest of a young lady. And some of the things, I don't want to go all deep in it, that you told this young lady to make a move that you made on this gal, this young lady.
There's a lot of I pled guilty to the crime, but there's a lot of things that didn't come out about the whole thing. But yes, I was guilty. I was, at the time, alcohol and drugs played a big part in the whole mess. I was an alcoholic, and since then, I've turned my life completely around. I've turned my life completely over to God, and I know a lot of people think that it's prison religion and all that, but it's not with me. My whole life revolves around Jesus Christ at this time.
Well, that's great. And you know, you were charged with 6 counts of oral sexual battery, 6 counts of sexual battery. How old was the victim of this case? Was she 14 when all this started?
At the time, I didn't know how old she was. I didn't find out how old she was till after I was convicted. And yes, sir, I think she was about 14, 15 years old, 16, something like that.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Marabella has some questions. Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Williamson, there's a statement in there that looks like a lawyer prepared it, but it's written in the first tense, so I assume you prepared it. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You know, how long you been in prison, Mr. Williamson?
Since 1998, that's roughly what, 21, 22 years.
What do you think are the most important programs that you've learned, or what you've learned? What have you learned about yourself since you've been in prison?
Oh, I've learned a lot. The drugs and alcohol and the sex offenders program, both of those was really the most important. The anger management that I took, I was never really an angry person. I was just a drunk, doped up person. So the alcohol class and the sex offenders program was the best.
Well, what have you learned about a person who abuses a 14-year-old girl sex-wise? What have you learned in your sex offender classes about that? Because I haven't seen any of that written in your papers. She was, these two girls that came there, they were on drugs, they did this. You seem to blame everyone but yourself. These girls were 14 years old. I don't care whether you're telling me today, oh, I didn't know they were 14 until I pled guilty. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, sir. I didn't know their age until I pled guilty, but I knew they were underage. But at the time that the crime was committed, it was drugs and alcohol that actually influenced
But I hear
everything.
I hear you saying that, but I hear you blaming them too. You're writing to blame them. They were dope heads. They were sexually active. These girls were 14 years old.
Yes, sir. I do understand that.
Tell me what you think. What have you learned about what you've done to these victims?
I learned that it was wrong, but at the time that it happened, I wasn't even in my right state of mind at the
You
time.
didn't write this document when this happened. You wrote this document recently blaming them for being dope heads and sex addicts.
I wasn't really blaming them.
It looks like it to me.
I was just saying what the situation was. I wasn't really blaming them.
Well, you still today believe the situation was you were in a position where these two harlots came into your life and you didn't really take advantage of them like an adult takes advantage of a normal 14-year-old. That's what I'm hearing in your writings.
That's not what I was saying in my writing. I was just explaining
but that's what I saw.
Yes, sir. I was just explaining the situation. Yes, sir. I was just trying to explain the situation of it. I wasn't blaming them. I don't put no fault on them. I put all the fault on myself. Because if I hadn't have been drinking, if I hadn't have been doing drugs, then no, I wouldn't have been in that situation. But I let the alcohol and the drugs influence everything that I was doing. And no, sir, I don't blame them. I blame myself totally. When I wrote that, and I've got a copy of it right here.
You say these two girls had a reputation of keeping plenty of drugs and partying throughout the neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
14 years old.
Yes, sir. I did write that because that is a true statement. The whole thing was that I was with a partying group, I guess you would say, and that's just the way it was at that time. And I mean, we opened our door and gave them a place to stay, thinking that would help them. But in reality, all it was we was looking for the drugs and the alcohol. The girls was just, I guess you'd say like a second thought to what it really was. It was the alcohol and drugs
It
that
sounds like they're a second thought still to you today, and that bothers me.
it's not second thoughts to me today. I wouldn't be doing that in a situation now because I'm off of the drugs. I'm off of the alcohol. I do not have any of that. I'm not going to sit here and insult your intelligence by saying that I wouldn't have the desire to have alcohol or drugs again. But with God in my life now, I'm not going to be doing drugs and alcohol whatsoever.
Thank you, sir.
Whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Ms. Jackson has a question.
When did, Mr. Williamson, when did you complete the sex offender treatment?
I haven't really ever finished it. I mean, completed it because I still study it. But 2004, I took the first phase.
Mm-hmm.
2003 was the second.
How could you take it for the first?
Ma'am,
Go ahead.
2004 is when I became a facilitator, and then I didn't quit. I didn't quit until, well, they moved me over here in 2015. That's when I quit facilitating the risk management course.
Well, I share Mr. Marabella's concerns. Even after going through sex offender treatment, even after being a facilitator for the sex offender program, even after that, you are still not accepting responsibility. In 2019, when you did the investigation and you were given an opportunity to speak, you said Elaine and Stephanie were already sexually active when they moved in with you. So it wasn't like you were preying on teenagers. He further advised that he just gave them a place to stay. This is what you wrote, even after having undergone sex offender treatment, which tells me you got nothing. You got nothing out of being in that program. When you can even bring up anything about these girls, indicates to me that, like Mr. Marabella said, you are blaming them. You are blaming them for what you did. Also, you had a statement that said you refused the 20-year sentence because you needed to be punished and needed to get some treatment. What is that about? That made no sense to me.
Yes, ma'am. The DA had offered me a 20-year sentence.
And
I told, yes, ma'am, I turned it down. I told my attorney that I wanted to get into a sex offenders program and I wanted to get into an alcohol program simply because I had started sobering up there in the parish.
Okay, did you plead guilty to this charge or did you go to trial?
I pleaded guilty. I started pleading guilty from day one.
But I don't understand why you would turn down a 20-year sentence because all the things you said you wanted to do, you could have done with a 20-year sentence. You could have gotten sex offender treatment. You could have gotten substance abuse treatment. So I don't understand the rationale of saying, no, don't give me 20, give me 50.
Well, I didn't ask for the 50 years. I told them that I wanted to go where I could get treatment. And my lawyer at the time had told me that with a 20-year sentence, that I probably would not be able to get into the sex offenders program. I was under the impression at the time that I would be sent somewhere for a sex offenders, like in a hospital or something like that, because I was also going through withdrawals from the alcohol and the drug abuse. And that's what I was under the impression. That's what my lawyer had led me to believe. But then when I got to Angola and got into the sex offenders program, then I understood what the sex offenders program was about.
Well, what it sounds, okay, Mr. Williamson, I was a judge for 28 years.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
what it sounds like to me is you weren't happy with the 20 years that you were offered. And maybe you balked at the plea, and maybe you later came back and changed your mind, but because you had rejected the 20 years, that's how you ended up with 50 years. That's what it sounds like to me. I don't buy this saying that you didn't think you could get into treatment with a 20-year sentence. I just don't buy that. But that's really all I have. Thank you, Mr. Williamson.
Gordon Bickham, is there any input from you?
Well, and as I say so often, I can only speak about how he is as an offender, not what happened prior to him coming here. And as an offender, he's done, the sex offender classes and stuff, and I have to kind of speak like Mr. Marabella and Ms. Jackson. I don't know exactly what he got out of those classes, but as far as a disciplinary record, hadn't had a write-up since 2012, and as far as his classes, he's taking classes. He's one of our horticulture guys around, keeps up with the yard and things like that. So as far as within the institution, he does a good job, but I can't speak to what he would do outside the institution.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your input as always. Ms. Roten, could you introduce our guest, please?
Yes, ma'am. Next, we're going to hear from Ms. Jamie Flick, a supporter. Ms. Flick, you can make your statement now. You need to unmute, please.
There we go. Okay. I've known Donald Williamson since 1989. At the time, I had two small children, one boy, one girl. He was always really good to our family. We had nothing but a positive influence from him. He did nothing but help our family. He does have a good support system on the outside. He had skills before he went in as a paint contractor, and now he has multiple skills on the outside. He's secured employment on the outside. We have a residence for him. We have a church for him. So as far as him getting out, everything is taken care of on the outside on our end of getting everything straight. I have visited him through the years. I don't believe that he's any threat on the outside of society. I don't know what else I can say, but it really, I understand that he has done bad things in his past, or he wouldn't be in there. But I believe that he's good to go. He's in there. He's done it. I don't believe that keeping him in prison could do anything else for him. And he's ready.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Flick. We appreciate you sharing those remarks with us this afternoon.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Williamson, is there a statement you'd like to make?
Also about the jobs and stuff, I do have a job that is lined up. I just got it in. I sent out some resumes, and I just got this in. I hadn't had time to get it faxed to y'all, to the board here, but it's from Sonny Panzico's Garden Mart. I've got it right here. He gave me a cell number and everything. So I've got a job. I've got, as Jamie just said, I've got residents and everything set up. You know, I'm not one to sit here and try and pull wool over somebody's eyes and all that. I'm 67 years old, and the things I've done in my past, I can't undo those things. All I can do is go for my future. And as for reoffending, I'm not gonna be doing the things that I was doing. I'm not gonna be doing alcohol and drugs. I'm not gonna be doing any of that. All I want to do is get out there and go to work as I do in here. I work from 7 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, pretty much 6 days a week. They even run me off from up here on holidays because I'm out here in the flower gardens. Flower gardens, horticulture that's my life now. You know.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Wise, are you prepared to
Yes.
vote?
Yes, ma'am. At this time, I'll be voting. I vote to deny. You got strong law enforcement victims opposition and criminal history, over 20 arrests, and the victim's 14 years of age. I think you need to be working on some more programs, work on as much as you can while you're there. But my vote is to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Roche.
Mr. Williamson, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Williamson, how long have you been incarcerated?
22 years, 23 years, something like that.
In 22 years, you have not realized what you did was wrong. You did accept responsibility today. You knew exactly what you were doing 22 years ago was wrong. You blamed drugs and alcohol, but you were not on drugs and alcohol when you premeditatedly planned how you were going to get those teenagers into your home in the ruse of having a cult and an initiation into that cult. You were not drunk, you were not on drugs. You premeditatedly planned how to molest 12, 13, and 14-year-old females. You knew that was wrong then, you know it's wrong now, and you have not fully admitted that you did what was wrong. Based on those factors, plus you have strong opposition from law enforcement, the DA's office, you have multiple victims adequately opposed, you have an extensive criminal background, and Mr. Williamson, I think you're still a public safety risk, and I will not vote for anyone who I think is a risk to public safety. So I deny your request.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Ms. Jackson.
Yes, Mr. Williamson, the same thing. It boggles my mind that after having gone through sex offender treatment and being a facilitator in sex offender treatment, that you would even be able to put on paper the things that you put, blaming these girls for what happened to them. It just shows me that you must have only just been a body in the room when those classes were being conducted, because you didn't get anything out of them. If you had, there would be no way that you would be able to say you know, these girls were this and these girls were that. And, oh, I was just, you know, doing them a favor, giving them a place to live. You sexually abuse them. I don't know how that's impacted them. I don't know what's happened to them as a result of this. But I believe, like Mr. Roche, you do pose a significant risk of reoffending because you have not accepted responsibility for your actions. And so I also vote to deny.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Marabella?
Mr. Williamson, I want to commend you on a good prison record. Your discipline has been good. You're in a structured environment. Apparently, you're off of drugs. You're off of alcohol. You've taken a lot of good programs. But like all of my colleagues have said today, I just don't think it's sunk in. You know, I like Judge Jackson, was a judge for a long time. And I've seen a lot of people come before me. Sex offenders often have a mental illness, a mental issue, problem that they need to overcome by treatment and by education and by accepting responsibility. I don't seem to see your acceptance of what you've done to these victims. You've been very good in prison, but what's going to happen if you get out with the mindset that you currently have today? It very much concerns me, as both Mr. Roche and Ms. Jackson has pointed out. Public safety is a significant issue for this board, and I'm very concerned about that. So my vote today, likewise, would be to deny.
Mr. Williamson, I too want to commend you on the work you've done since you've been in prison. Warden Bickham has said good things about you, but today you've received 4 unfavorable votes. So the outcome of today's proceeding is that your application for clemency has been denied, sir. Good luck to you. Warden Bickham, I think that concludes our business at your facility. We'll wrap it up. It is 12:05 p.m. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Y'all have a good day.
Yeah, let's unpack that. First, what do you think about this setup? It's the first time that we have seen a setup like this. They're in a different room. They have the close-up and the far-out camera, and it just makes me ask, how come they're not using the same setup now? We've been watching them in late 2022 and 2023 where their mics have been not that great and the view is not that great, and all of a sudden, and we take a basically a time machine back to 2021 and they have better setup. What's going on? That's like my first question. Next is, it's like I might just becoming numb to this, but like the more I watch so many of these, it's like I'm getting less and less shocked by these cockroaches and by these cockroaches enablers. When his friend Jamie Flick comes on and she says, I have known him since 1989 and I had 2 small children. My heart jumped a beat. How can you be so dumb? He helped around the house. He helped with the children. You're still supporting it. What are you? It's just, you just have to pray that he was, also just trying to be so manipulative, and it's always the big red flag, and they don't understand at all, because we see them, certain of them pick the thing, and he says, I found Jesus, I found God. I'm not like the other inmates that found Jesus. This is real. And it's like, okay, you have no idea, but you just set yourself back 10 points. And it only got worse from there, really. of course, Jim Wise comes in and he's pretty much just, pretty much one of the worst interviewers. He asks a few rambling questions, and then Mr. Mirabella comes in and lays down a classic Mr. Mirabella, and he doesn't even waste his breath after he says, I've changed because I found Jesus. And Mr. Mirabella says, okay, I'm done. And he wrote, what they kept saying is that he wrote a letter when he was applying for commutation, and he wrote a letter stating all of those things. They were sexually active. They were looking for a place to stay. They were, and I wish I had documents to go through. Apparently, it seems he tried this whole cult move on them. We don't have anything. And he took a plea deal. He even tries to joke his way through it by saying that I didn't want 20 years. And I turned down the 20 years because I couldn't get the programs. And then they gave me 40. And it's like, what you're saying makes no sense. Like, who do you think you're talking to? You think you can just fool? Like, you think we're a bunch of idiots? He even said it. I don't want to insult your intelligence. Dude, you insulting all of our intelligence with your pathetic, how do you suspend 22 something years in prison rotting away with nothing but time to think, and you can't even come up with something? And it just shows there's something very wrong with these people. And they could say, it's like when you see those hyper super mega narcissists that get on the stand and they think they're doing an incredible job to the jury, and they're just completely tanking, and they don't get it. They don't understand how the world perceives them. They think that they're the smartest person in the room. They don't. And I think that's what we're looking at here. I mean, he doesn't have the insight where he would actually go put pen on paper and blame it on these children. Make up stories about the DA offering certain deals. What is the beautiful thing is that he got a 50-year sentence. This is a commutation hearing. He was asking the board to recommend to the governor to say, you're not going to sit your 50 years. You'll get a chance. We'll reduce your sentence to maybe 30 with a chance of parole. You will reduce your sentence to 20 so you can, and he's probably gonna die in prison. He's 68 years old now, and he's got another 30 years to go, and he's not gonna get commutation anytime soon. I don't think he's capable of even manipulating his way and faking it to happen, which is great for the safety of our children. And it is great to see that in that all these years, it's interesting that this DA, it was a plea deal. He didn't go to trial. And I think I don't really understand it. They offered 20. He said no, and they came back with 50 because he took a plea deal. So I'm a little confused about that. But and it could be that they said 20 and he said no, and then the DA ego was hurt and said, okay, bro, 50, and you have no choice, or go to trial. That could be what happened. And in a little sense, it annoys me because if that was the scenario, and I'm just hypothecating, why wouldn't the DA just have done that to begin with and just said 50? I'm really tired. Imagine he would have been out by now if he had taken 20. And you think that should be going into freedom, into the streets? But we see it all the time. We see deals for 20 years all the time. And people like him getting out in the public, and it blows my mind. And if the DA would have, because his ego was challenged, would have come back with 50, then, I just don't know why they don't do it all the time. But I don't have the details. I'm, again, just guessing. But I'm glad that the board did what they did. The only thing we were missing was a DA to show up and put him in his place, but otherwise it was pretty near perfect. But thank you again for everything. You wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it here, and that's why we do this. People need to understand what we're dealing with. These are not normal people. And the only way to keep our children safe is to keep these people, these roaches, behind bars. And with that, I'll let you go. Well, now I'm back. We're fast forwarding really to just a little bit, about a year after the hearing that we just saw, January 4th, 2022. And you might say, wait a minute, how is he getting another commutation hearing just a year later? And then as you watch this hearing, you'll say, wait a minute, there's only 3 board members. A commutation board has to have at least 4 members. Well, that's because Act 122 was passed. And Act 122, which was pushed, the legislation was pushed by the Parole Project to allow inmates that have served more than 20 years of their sentence. If they are over the age of 40, they will automatically become eligible for parole, regardless of what they've done to do to harm children, regardless of how it affects the victims. Parole Project pushed this legislation because what it did is move tens of millions of dollars from the DOC to alternative programs like the non-for-profit Parole Project. Anyways, because of that, we're about to see him just a little bit more than a year after that initial hearing, and he's here for a regular parole opportunity. But that's Louisiana for you. And with that, let's jump in.
Unless that's something I'm not seeing.
I have my staff looking at it now, Mr. Roche.
Okay, good. And you've served 24 years and 6 months on your sentence, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you hadn't even reached the 50% mark in serving your sentence. And you were made eligible this year by Act 122 of the state legislature of last year, is that correct?
Yes. Yes, that is correct, sir.
And you've earned 210 days of good time. Tell me about your programs.
Okay, I've taken the risk management, which is the sex offenders program, which I've taught for over 10 years.
Okay, now let me stop you there.
Yes,
I
sir.
saw all the reports that were prepared by you saying that you've completed all 4 phases of the sex offender treatment.
Yes, sir.
I did not see that listed in any of the official documents of DOC. I do not see any certificates of completion in your record. Warden Bickham,
Yes,
do
sir.
you have confirmation that he's completed all 4 phases?
I need that record back. I got him looking at that record right now. Do you have?
I got certificates right here.
Let's see.
Okay.
Let's see. He completed. Y'all tell me when he completed. He did the 4.
Here it is. Right here's certificates right here.
Okay, those certificates weren't submitted in your PPI.
Okay. I took the let's see, I completed it on May 25th of 2004. It's signed here by Eric Cohen
Yes.
and Mr. Ankerbrand.
Yes, sir.
Right. Yeah, okay. So it's
in-
confirmed. It's confirmed. I just didn't have the documentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So it's confirmed. Let's go continue with your programs. Risk management.
I've taken the risk management, like I said, all 4 phases, which I taught for over 10 years. Living in balance, I took that in 2007. Anger management, I took that in 2005. On that, living in balance was part 1 and 2.
Right.
And then the, like I said, anger management was in 2005. I took AANA 2006.
Okay.
I took
Tell me
What-
about, I'm satisfied to the point that you've completed your sex offender treatment. Tell me about any recent programs that you've taken in the last 2 or 3 years.
Let's see. I'm in. It's not really a treatment, but it's called the Pillars Group. It's a religious manhood group. It teaches men how to be men. And I'm not talking about, oh,
Right.
I'm talking about the man's role in life, how we're supposed to take care of our family, take care of our duties.
Yes.
We're the breadwinner and all that. That's what I'm in right now. Also, I do a lot of mentoring around here in the horticulture program. We don't have the horticulture program here, but I did graduate from horticulture at
Right.
Angola. I'm sure you've seen all that.
Right.
I've got 14, 15 some odd licenses from the Department of Agriculture. I've done all of those. Matter
Yeah.
of fact, the last one I finished was carpentry, and I got the carpentry and the NCCER. I've also taken I became a instructor with the CPR team at Angola. And
Right.
I've also taken a bachelor's. I'm sorry, I didn't take it. I received a bachelor's of theology and associate of theology. I've got both of those certificates here. I don't know if those were sent in to you also.
Yes,
But,
I have. The only one I was concerned was the risk management, all 4 phases. I've seen all the other programs.
Okay, all right.
Okay, now let's talk about your disciplinary record.
Yes, sir. I've got what, 7 write-ups.
Okay,
Let's see. I've got it right here.
well, most important, when was your last disciplinary write-up?
My last one was in 2012, February of 2012.
Excuse me 1 second, Mr. Williamson.
Yes,
Miss
sir.
Morgan, Miss Morgan, would you please keep your camera still? Please keep your camera still. Okay, Mr. Williamson.
Okay. Like I said, I've got 7 disciplinary, and the
When
last
was-
one was in February of 2012.
2012. So we're talking almost 10 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Tell me what your job is at the facility.
Right now I'm on light duty because I've had 5 heart attacks this past year. But my main job is the flower beds here. I do all the flower beds around this area, around Unit 5 here, around the gym, all the way down to the chapel. Horticulture is my main thing. Landscaping, flower bed designs, and anybody that wants flowers for their offices and stuff. The greenhouse, that's all my areas.
Gardening can be a stress reliever, and it's good. It's good for your heart.
Yes, it is. That's what I tell them all the time.
Yeah. So tell me about your transition plan. What do you plan to live? And what do you plan to work?
Okay, sir. I've got a friend of mine that it's in the paperwork here. I've got, she's going to let me live in her house. That's going to be in Bastrop, Louisiana. Her name is Jamie Flick.
Right.
And I've got a place to live there. I've also sent out a dozen or more of resumes. I had one guy answer back from Canzico's Garden Mart in West Monroe. and he's willing to give me a second chance. You know, I'm gonna work for him up there in the nursery, since I do have a nurseryman certificate from LSU Ag. He's gonna let me work in his nursery there.
Okay. Have you ever had a problem with drugs or alcohol?
Yes, sir, I did. That's the reason I took the substance abuse and living in balance, the AANA. I had a big problem with drugs and alcohol.
Okay. And what was your drug of choice?
Cocaine, mainly.
Yeah. How long did you use cocaine?
Ooh, Lord. Many a year. I'm gonna have to say 7, maybe 10 years that I used.
Have you ever had a problem with alcohol?
Oh, yes, sir. I was out. I am an alcoholic. I'm not gonna say I was. I am an alcoholic. Alcohol was actually my main drug of choice. And like I said, I took the living in balance and AANA because of that.
Thank you, sir. Warden Bickham, would you like to make any comments, remarks, or observations?
Yes, sir, I will. Would you like my records department to explain that, the record real quick to you? About
Yes.
the time?
Yes.
Ashley can explain that to him. I have Ashley Bradley, my records manager. She can explain it better than I can for sure.
Good evening. We, on each of those 10-year sentences that are running consecutive, it states credit for time served. So in accordance with the Bodie decision, I believe that was sometime in 2017, we
Right.
give credit for time served even on consecutive sentences when it's ordered in the minutes. So he was getting 478 days of credit
Right.
on each one of those consecutive sentences.
Oh, on each one.
Yes, sir.
And that's where you picked up the 5 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate it.
I knew classification would know the answer.
Yeah, that was records. I tell you, my records department, I'll put them against any department, any other facility in the state. They're the best. When I need something answered, they always right there. So, as far as good afternoon, Mr. Roche. As far as Donald here, I can only speak for within the facility, and not anything outside of that I have no. But he does take care of the horticulture areas and stuff, and does a good job, and he stayed out of trouble. So he's done some good things while he's here.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Wise.
Thank you, Chairman. And Mr. Williamson, as a sex offender treatment instructor for the last 10 years, so I know you're very knowledgeable in this area, and this your offense is concerning to me. So, what are your triggers, and what you have in place to not commit this kind of crime again?
First of all, let me explain to you. I've got God on my side. God's going to keep me from going to prevent me from doing anything. Like I said, I've turned my life completely over to the Lord. When I committed these crimes, which I am extremely sorry for, I'm sorry I put both of my victims through the pain and suffering, the emotional stress that I put them through. I'm extremely sorry for that. I can't pull back time, or I would. I pray every night that God would let me turn back the clock and take this all away. I can't do it. But my triggers on that was, I don't want to sit here and say that it was drugs and alcohol that caused me to do it. I don't want to say that. Drugs and alcohol was a factor, but it wasn't the main thing. I was very selfish, greedy. I wanted to satisfy my own needs at the expense of others. I justified everything I did by saying that I'm older, I'm right. You're young, you do as I say. You know, and that was my main trigger, was I wanted to be in control of everything. The way I was raised was the man's right, the woman's not. The woman does what the man says, period. No matter her age, no matter what. That's the way my daddy treated my mother. He treated all of his women like that. But I mean, you know, and that's where I got it from. I was raised like that, and that I'm not using that as an excuse, but it was drilled in me, and that's the way I was. And it wasn't until when I first took the sex offenders program, and I started learning the 27 risk factors: justify, blame, denial, negative peer group, negative emotional state. All of them. Control was in there. Intimidation, because I made my victims afraid. You know, if they said no, I did this. If they refused what I told them to do, I did this. Things like that. And it wasn't really until I took that class, and then, can I give you a little testimony for a second?
A second, yes, sir, very short.
Okay. One day I was sitting in the hobby shop, and I was a hobby shop orderly at the time, and I was listening to the radio, Jesus Take the Wheel. There was a knock on the door about that time. There was nobody in there, nobody around, because the gate was locked and I was cleaning up. There was a knock on the door, and it said, Don, open up. This happened 3 times. When I opened the door, there was nobody there. Well, I left the hobby shop, told Sergeant Bertrand there, the place was haunted. You know, I was finished cleaning up. He could let them in, let everybody else in. And he told me then, he says, Don, he says, you're not listening. He says, listen. I said, look, the place is haunted. There's nobody in that hobby shop. Of course, I was using quite a few little side words in there. And I said, I'm going out on the yard to do some walking. And I walked out on the yard, and I heard the knock again. I mean, it sounded just like somebody was knocking at the door. And this inmate minister come jogging by me that's never on the yard. I haven't spoken to him maybe 3 words since I got to Angola. That was in 2004, I believe, 2000. It was just before Katrina. And I heard the knock again. And it said, Don, open your door. I knew what it was then. I knew it was the Lord knocking on my heart. He come jogging by, and he stopped, and he says, Don, he says, the Lord told me for you to open the door to your heart and let him in. It was time.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, for that. Thank you.
You know,
That's all I had, Chairman. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. At this time, would Ms. Elaine Morgan please unmute your mic?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Morgan, I want to tell you that we appreciate you participating. I know it's going to take courage to make this statement, but this is a part of the process, and we're so grateful that you made a decision to participate. Give us your statement.
I really don't know what to say. I mean, I'm glad he's gone through all those programs, but I'm still scared for him to be out on the streets. I believed him when he told me all the stuff he told me all those years ago. I believed him when he told me that he would hurt me. I believed him. I still believe him. Still have nightmares. I don't know what else. I don't know what else to say.
We appreciate you participating, and we understand that you're still emotionally, physically, and mentally affected by the crime, and that will be taken into consideration. Thank you. Mr. Williamson,
Yes, sir.
can we get a brief 1-minute statement from you in closing?
Yes, sir. Like I said, I've changed my life completely, and I fully understand Elaine's emotional stress right there, mental stress. I have nothing whatsoever against her. I don't blame her for turning me in. All I can do is promise her that I won't go nowhere near her. I won't go nowhere near the area that she lives in. I have nothing whatsoever, against her whatsoever. And I can only wish her the best, and I can only apologize to her for what I did. I'm not the same man that I was 24 years ago. I've completely changed. And if y'all just give me a chance, y'all will see that I'm a changed man. I'm not the same man.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. Is the panel ready to vote? Mr. Williamson, your case was assigned to me, and I will vote first. Mr. Williamson, sometimes the crime is so horrendous, such an act against nature, that only time can heal the damage done by the crime. You have served only about 49% of your sentence. And based upon your extensive criminal history, even though you're a first offender, you've been arrested 21 times.
Yes, sir.
Not all those charges were prosecuted. A lot of them were dismissed. Some were null processed. One charge, you had indecent behavior with a juvenile. You pled down to contributing to the delinquency of a juvenile, so it wouldn't be a sex offense. You have an extensive criminal history. The DA's office is strongly opposed to a release because you hadn't served at least 50% of your sentence. You have victim opposition. And quite frankly, Mr. Williamson, I think you're a risk to public safety. And that's only my opinion. For all the reasons that I've articulated, I'm going to deny your request today. Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Roche, Mr. Williamson, Mr. Roche did a thorough interview with you. In listening to you today, I have to say I have some serious concerns. I appreciate the courage that it took for the victim to come here today and to talk to us. And I heard what she said. And I can only imagine what she's gone through. For all of the reasons as articulated by Mr. Roche, my vote likewise is going to be the same today to deny you. So good luck to you.
Mrs. Wise.
Mr. Williamson, I was very concerned when you made the statement about where the victims live and such. I really wish you hadn't mentioned that. That's very concerning to me. I concur with my colleagues, nevertheless, due to the strong law enforcement opposition, the age of your victims, and the nature of the crime, my vote is to deny today as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Mr. Williamson, you have received 3 votes to deny your request today. Your request for early release has been denied. You have a good day.
Hey, do you hear anything? Oh, I hear a knocking at the door. It must be the warden welcoming him back into prison. What an idiot. What he thinks, these people that he's so stuck in his own little world and he thinks he can manipulate the board with his story. He planned that story. He rehearsed that story. It's like, you're pathetic. That's all I was. It's like, oh my gosh, I wanted to, Mr. Marabella, he basically, he almost dropped out of his chair. He sneezed, had an allergic reaction to that one. It was, I just can't stand these. Some of the time, these interviews are just so poorly run that at least the ending was satisfying. And, you have to remember the survivor in this case, and she had to get up and she was brave to do that. And this is the idiot, just the insanity of Act 122. The idea that he was up for a commutation hearing just a year ago, and then all of a sudden, after that pathetic case of a hearing, now he gets the parole hearing, and he's going to keep coming back for the parole hearing, and it's just nuts. We can thank the Parole Project for that. And it's I don't really know what else to say except how the scary thought that he might that who knows, with some other board maybe he gets released, but thank goodness that didn't happen there. I wish I again had more information, but that's all we have. But thank you for being here for these hearings. It is, if he does come up for another parole hearing sometime soon, then we will cover it. I do believe they passed legislation that requires 5 years between hearings for these type of offenses. And hopefully that had taken it into effect by this date. I'm not entirely clear of it or not, but thank you, Richard, for putting together both of these hearings. And with that, I'll let you go.